Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, April the 28th, and I think you're going to enjoy this one. I'm going to be reading you a few pages, the last few pages of the book Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, written by Lady Colin Campbell. I've been talking about Meghan and Meghan's father, about him going to the Jubilee and how I felt about him in the last video. Well, when I was watching Lady C today, she reminded me of something that she had written in her book at the very end. And I know she speaks very favorably about him. And I don't have anything really negative to say about him, except that I think that he's behaving in the same way she is. And maybe that's because she's given him no choice. But I just don't want him doing anything to upstage the Queen at her Jubilee. And I talked about that in yesterday's video. So I'm going to reveal a little something for you. And I did a coverage of her book, and then the last few chapters, it kind of just slowed down for me, so I just didn't do the last few chapters. But Lady C talks about a phone call that she received from an aristocrat, as she knew that Harry knew that she was writing a book about them. And Harry asked a friend to contact her to say, or maybe to caution her, so she wouldn't be so hard on her in the book, to say that something had occurred, that there's a reason why Meghan is estranged from her father. So I'm going to start by reading these pages, and she goes over them very gently. So I'll tell you when you've got to listen very carefully so that you can read between the lines, because I too don't want to come out and accuse someone of something that I know nothing about. But this is from Lady C. So let me go through the disclaimer, and I'll get started. So I'm going to be reading from page 403 to 407. Pain or no pain, Meghan and Harry are a double act who protect themselves using any resource at their disposal. To date, their associates have thrown her father, her brother, and her sister-in-law, even his naysaying grandmother, under the bus. Whether they are responsible for these veiled attacks, or they are only benefit from them, but do not actually set others up to launch them on their behalf, the fact that they do not dissociate themselves from the stories while creaming in their benefits leaves a mystery at their level of knowledge and involvement. Responsible or not, they nevertheless hide behind a rich arsenal of aggressive supporters who do not flinch from attacking on their behalf. And the aim of each attack is always to preserve them while burying everyone else under fusillade. There was also a game Diana played, and this is the absolute opposite of how the royals function. Harry and Meghan need to take responsibility and discourage their friends and associates from playing such a nasty, destructive game. Quite how destructive it can be was driven home to me in the most forceful way when I received an uninvited tip-off which I was asked to accept. Whether justly or unjustly is another matter entirely, as enamored from Harry himself. Presumably, there was the hope or expectation that my sympathies would be engaged, and since I was already known to be an impartial commentator who was rooting for them but questioned the advisability of some of Meghan's conduct, I had to conclude that they or someone close to them was trying to shape the narrative on my behalf. It has been no secret in royal and aristocrat circles that I was writing this book. The cooperation that I had received, as can be seen from the content of the work, was so comprehensive that I was catapulted back nearly 3 decades to when I was writing my Diana biographies. As January 2020 was coming to an end, history repeated itself in a wholly unwelcomed but enlightening way. After Britain's Channel 5 aired its interview with Thomas Markle, in which he made it clear that he loved his daughter and was distraught at the loss of their relationship and was perplexed as to the reason why she refused to get in touch with him, I received a telephone call from an extremely eminent, well-connected aristocrat who had a direct connection to Harry, though through one of his closest friends. Did I want to know the real reason why Meghan had had to sever ties with her father? Of course I did. A song and dance then ensued, with the informant asserting that the truth was so awful that she could not possibly bring herself to utter the words. I had to point out that the writer cannot consider, much less use, an allegation that is not spelt out clearly. I was then informed that Harry himself believed the information to be true, as if there would somehow mitigate for something that was so mysteriously awful that it could not be put into words. Yet I was supposed to write it. I was then invited to guess what was the worst thing that a daughter could have against her father. Not being a simpleton or 3 years old, I immediately cottoned on to where this was going, but still refused to be drawn, pointing out that a responsible author does not guess, but relies upon information that is freely imparted. After the most tremendous palaver, the informant then managed to spit out the odious words, interference. I asked what the word meant in the context, and was left in no doubt as to what it did mean. I am terribly sorry, but anyone with scruples or a heart invited to accuse a man whose daughter was full of praise for his parenting skills only weeks before she met her prince would have to be low indeed to give credence to such a debased piece of information. I felt duty-bound to point out that the informant that Harry could not possibly believe such a thing. If he did, it meant that he accepted that Meghan was a brazen liar who had fabricated a truly loving father to impress the readers of her blog, as well as everyone else, on how worthy she was of the love of such a wonderful man. Either that or she was lying now, or someone had mischievously made up the whole thing to gain my sympathy. That certainly cast me right back to the bad old days of 1990, when bizarre stories were invited which had so many permutations that their objective was frequently obscure, through their source was a transparent as the freshly cleaned glass at Kensington Palace. Of course, one must acknowledge the possibility that Harry might not, despite appearances on the contrary, have known anything about the telephone call. Notwithstanding the fact that he was in Britain at the time, this could well have been a coincidence. His friend, knowing that I am neither a supporter nor a detractor, could have been trying to influence the narrative in such a way that I would be tempted to look more favorably upon Meghan's treatment of her father. One must always keep an open mind until all the evidence is in. But when the wind is blowing strongly in a certain direction, the weather vane naturally registers that fact. It looks increasingly unlikely that Meghan and Harry will be returning to live in Britain any time soon, if ever again. All the indications are that they will remain in the United States. Whether they will make the big bucks that they're aiming for is another matter. They might well do so, though there is also every possibility that they might make less than they hoped. Either way, Meghan has destroyed her acceptability within the British establishment in a way no one else has done since Diana Wells slit her own throat while spewing out bile to Martin Bashir in the hope that she would deprive Charles of the right to the throne. And that was what she intended to do. My words. From then until her death, most doors, including within her own family, were shut to her. Even before that, she had become so marginalized that she was playing serious catch-up with the people she had fallen out with, including me, said Lady C. Harry falls into another category. While there is no doubt that Harry has damaged his reputation by decamping, should he need to return to live in Britain, he will be reincorporated with dignity and even compassion. But reputation in Britain is likely a beautifully wrong glass vase. Once it's broken, even if it's repaired and looks okay, it doesn't ever hold the water the way it used to. Its fundamental function being altered, it has less value. Harry's glory days are over as a public figure in Britain, not only because he abandoned his post, but because too many people have voiced the opinion that he is weak, pussy-whipped, and pathetic. The speculation continues as to whether Meghan and Harry's marriage will last. As stated earlier, they were from the very outset. People at the palace were taking bets as to whether they would give it 2 or 5 years. Even Germaine Greer waded in hoping that Meghan's profession of love were sincere. I hope, too, they are, for there is no doubt in my mind that Harry genuinely loves her and will be heartbroken if she turns out to be a mirage instead of the oasis he believes her to be. I know as a fact that Harry's family is hoping the marriage lasts, but will not be taking any bets on it. Privately, they have reeled from the way Meghan has influenced Harry into withdrawing from his birthright. Royalty is like a secular religion. You do not become an apostate without earning the disapproval of all true believers. Nor even the most open-minded family has a high opinion of anyone who caused a beloved family member's departure, and the fact that their opinions reflect their loss. Even the Queen, who is the most anodyne of all of them, has expressed her displeasure in no uncertain terms. She has many friends, and she will be forthright in expressing her viewpoint. I have been told by 2 separate and utterly reliable sources that she feels that Meghan's demeanor has been only a cut above a floozy's, and her conduct has been no better than a strumpet's. That does not mean that she regards Meghan as either a floozy or a strumpet, but simply as someone whose sense of obligation, responsibility, and self-adulation is reminiscent of a category of woman who is out for herself in any way than any other woman would not be. These remarks by no means compare with Queen Elizabeth's, the Queen Mother's description of the Duchess of Windsor as the lowest of the low, but they do show how disappointed and even hurt the Queen has been by Harry and Meghan stepping back. Despite this, the Queen's policy is to keep the door open for them to return to the royal fold if they want to, and if they do not, as seems likely, at least where Harry is concerned, for the duration of the marriage, to maintain enough of a publicly approving profile for them to be included in the occasional event. Her ideal scenario is for Harry and Meghan to make infrequent appearances when they do come back to the UK, or for them to represent her in some Commonwealth capacity from time to time, thereby delivering the message to the world that all is well with Harry and Meghan and Archie, who remain beloved members of the family. This show of harmony is the ultimate aim, for no one seriously expects Meghan and Harry to resume their place in the chorus line of royal theatrics. Intermittent displays of acceptance as they float across the stage will also endow them with just enough respectability for them to become what they truly want to be, commercial operatives at the highest level. But the royals and their advisors are aware that the true beneficiaries of this policy will be Harry and Meghan. Any patina of acceptability will benefit from the far more than it does the royal family, whose prestige will remain undented no matter what happens to theirs. This is little doubt that the family regrets Harry and Meghan's departure and minds awfully the manner and motive for their departure. Financial independence, when you're worth tens of millions, does not strike people who take their duties seriously as a good enough reason to chuck away a life of service and privilege for one of hustling for real money and Kardashian-style fame. Yet the family understands that there is nothing they can do to influence a couple hell-bent on doing things their own way. Hopefully Meghan and Harry will prove their critics wrong. Hopefully they will do sterling humanitarian work, earn money nobly, and ultimately she might even realize her ambition of becoming President of the United States of America. Hopefully they will resolve their dilemma where privacy is concerned, and hopefully they will make a genuine success of their lives, not only by demonstrating how adept they are at acquiring fame and fortune, but in fulfilling the high hopes of hundreds of millions, maybe even billions of people of color who look up to Meghan as a beacon of hope when she first became Duchess of Sussex. Meghan and Harry have struck out on a new path, and I for one hope they make a success of it. If I were a betting woman, I would not be given any odds, because Hercules put it better than I could. Character is destiny. The harbingers are so mixed that the only thing I would predict with any certainty is that Meghan and Harry will be ensuring that today, tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year, their actions will keep them at the forefront of everyone's attention. So if I go back to that one paragraph and I read the word that was used. Give me just a moment. Where Meghan is talking about her father, and we don't know what she's told Harry about him, but there's some reason why she doesn't want to see him, and that Harry supports her in not wanting to see her father. Is it because that she told him, and then Harry told a friend to contact Lady C, that there was an interference? After the most tremendous palaver, the informant then managed to spit out the odious word, interference. So is she saying that her father took liberties with her, that he did something inappropriate? That's what it seems like. And that's what it seems like this aristocrat that contacted Lady C was saying, so that she could write maybe more favorably about Meghan, knowing this. But even Lady C said in her video today that up until 2 weeks, and she even says it in the book, 2 weeks before, she was still raving about what a wonderful father he was. And I watched the Pdina interview, part 2, with Thomas Markle, and I wanted to know this. Was an invitation ever given to him? And he never received an invitation to the wedding. And supposedly they sent someone to pick him up at the hospital, but he said, I never saw them, they never came in. But I guess that driver said that, he didn't get into the car. Well, this was when he was in the hospital after having his massive heart attack and having 2 stents put in. Did she ever want her father at the wedding? I don't think she did, but that's just my opinion. And I need to say allegedly all of these things that were said, but I was reading them directly from Lady C's book that I had bought as soon as it come out. I buy every book on the royals and read them all because I like to find tidbits of information. But if this is why Harry has supported her all along and her not wanting to have a relationship with her father, then it's really sad. I think that she said things to Harry, just my own opinion, that Meghan's father would have disputed and said that's not true, just like she has the narrative of rags to riches, which we know is not true, just like her going on Oprah and saying all of these things. She's very adept at playing the victim card and playing the race card and trying to make out that she's been so wrong done by everybody else that we should feel sorry for her and should accept her and have compassion. Well, I have compassion for people, and I have compassion for Mr. Markle and his other children. But the thing that bothered me yesterday was him going on Dan Wooten's GBN segment and talking about going to the Jubilee. I understand he wants to meet the royal family. I just don't know if that's the best thing. I don't know if, like Meghan, if he can be trusted. How do we know if he doesn't tell everything that's going on to everybody else, that he won't share any secret meetings that he would have with members of the royal family? And I'm sure they feel for Mr. Markle as well. I just don't know if going to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee is the right time. And that's what makes me think he's very much like Meghan, that he's narcissistic and that he wants to get the attention, thinking that's going to make a difference. But look how long he's been doing it now. And it hasn't made a difference. Meghan still hasn't decided to see him. He went to and drove to Oprah's house and hand-delivered a letter to her security asking for a chance to have a sit-down with her and give his side of the story, and that wasn't allowed. People who want to put a certain narrative out to the world are not going to let other people give their side of the story because they want just their side out there. So that's why I felt so disappointed by Mr. Markle and Mr. Wooten. And I sat down last night and wrote a long email, and I sent it to Dan Wooten at GBN. I received a response back that that it had been received, and that that I could receive a response back, or it could be read on air. I don't know. I'm not looking for that to happen. I wouldn't want that to happen. But I just told him about my disappointment that I didn't want him, that Mr. Markle exploited, and I didn't want anything to upstage the Queen, and that's what I was most upset about. And I don't like his behavior, and he's talking with everyone, and he shares, I think, too much. I just don't think that he could be trusted not to share what was said and who he met with if he was granted an audience with the royal family. So, I'm very interested in knowing what your thoughts and comments are on this. Please let me know. And isn't it a shame that somebody would accuse their father of the most heinous act that you could accuse one's father of, after in her blog, The Tig, and everywhere on social media, she had always praised her father as being wonderful. She had always had so much love and admiration for him and said he was the best father in the world. How do you go from saying that and then within a matter of a few weeks tell your husband there was interference and Harry having a friend allegedly call Lady C to try to influence what she would be writing in her book about Meghan, and if she would take a sympathetic view. So that's all I have for you today. I'm working on the other book, but I just watched that and I thought, well, this is a good thing to make a video about. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I don't think I've ever seen it out in the press. I've only seen it in Lady C's book, and I haven't seen it in other books that I've read. So maybe that's something that you weren't aware of, and I don't think I'd disclose that in any other videos that I can recall. But everybody, have a great day, and I will be back with you with more very soon. Thank you for listening